He loved me before I loved myself. Alara was a master of the quiet art of pretending. She wore a smile like a delicate porcelain mask, one that she painted on every morning to hide the war raging inside her chest. To the world, she was composed and kind, but to herself, she was a collection of mistakes waiting to be found out. She lived in the shadows of her own judgment, convinced that her true self was something to be kept in the dark. Then she met Julian. He didn't look at her the way others did, skimming over the polished surface of her smile. From the moment they spoke, he looked at her with a steady, quiet curiosity, as if he were reading a poem that everyone else had simply glanced at and put aside. He seemed to see the flicker of the internal war she fought and chose to step closer rather than run. Alara tried to warn him. She spent their evenings whispering her flaws like a litany of prayers, hoping he would see the cracks in the porcelain and turn away before things went too far. She told him she was too difficult, too loud in her head, and far too empty in her heart. She was certain that if he knew the depth of her self-doubt, he would find someone easier to love. But Julian only listened. When she called herself broken, he reached out and took her hand, his touch grounding her in the present. "You aren't a puzzle to be solved, Alara," he said softly, his voice a calm shore against her crashing waves. "You are a landscape I want to spend my life exploring, even the parts you think are barren." Julian became a constant in her life, a soft light that didn't flicker even when the wind of her self-doubt blew hardest. He was patient in a way she didn't understand, challenging her cruelest thoughts with simple truths. He didn't demand that she change. He simply sat with her in the dark until she was no longer afraid of it. One evening, the weight of her internal battle felt too heavy to carry. The mask finally shattered, and Alara broke down, sobbing into her hands in the middle of a quiet living room. Julian didn't try to fix her or offer empty platitudes. He didn't tell her to cheer up or list all the reasons she should be happy. "How can you love someone who doesn't even like herself?" she asked, her voice trembling and raw. Julian leaned back, looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the room. "Because I'm not blinded by the things you tell yourself," he replied. "I see the person you are when you aren't fighting. And she is someone worth knowing." Slowly, the harsh voices in Alara's head began to lose their volume. She started to look at her reflection not as a critic searching for flaws, but as a witness to her own survival. She noticed the way her eyes brightened when she laughed, a detail Julian had praised 100 times before she finally believed him. She began to treat herself with the same gentleness he showed her. Healing wasn't a sudden explosion of light, it was a slow, deliberate dawn. With Julian's hand in hers, Alara began to believe that she didn't have to be perfect to be worthy of space. He had carried the light for her during her darkest nights, holding it steady until her own hands were strong enough to hold the torch. Today, Alara still wears a smile, but it isn't a mask anymore. It is an invitation. She has learned to be gentle with the girl in the mirror, acknowledging the scars without letting them define her. She realized that while Julian loved her before she loved herself, he wasn't the destination. He was the bridge that helped her find the way back